Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the old school. Get ready. Merry Christmas. First off, Merry Christmas out there to everybody. We are back, and we are going to pay homage and tribute to arguably, in some people's eyes, arguably, but I know in my uncle's eyes here, the greatest athlete of the second half of the 20th century, Wilt Chamberlain, Philadelphia's own Wilt Chamberlain. Philadelphia's own went to Overbrook High, and this guy could do it all. But anyway, without further ado, we're missing our cousin Roger. He couldn't make it tonight, so it's just me and Uncle Mark. So Em, how you doing?
Fine, thank you. Good seeing you, Joe. Yeah, hello everybody.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yeah, so take a ride in the Delorean with us, and it's cold out there. Get nestled up, and let's relive some of these memories. We're gonna get right into it here. Hopefully, some of you. Well, I know a lot of us, myself included. I know I've never seen Wilt Chamberlain play, but just the stories that I've heard. I know you've told me many stories, and my grandfather told me some stories, and so just really interesting stuff here. So anyway, we're going to get right into it here. Wilton Norman Chamberlain. I mean, where do you begin? What a career, huh?
Amazing.
So first off, Wilt Chamberlain was one of nine children. And this is a really interesting fact you have here. Nearly died of pneumonia when he was young, causing him to miss 1 year of grade school.
Yep.
So it's a career that almost never was.
Yep.
He was 6 foot at the age of 10 years old. I mean, that's pretty ironic. And 6'11" at the beginning of ninth grade. And I think you wrote in your article that his parents were like five. What?
His mother and father were no taller than 5'9", and none of his siblings were tall as like he was. So it was just one of those genetic freaks.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, what was he, like the mailman's kid or something? You know what I mean? It makes you want, it's like you're like, wait, how did this happen? You know what I mean?
Amazing.
But yeah, and Will was known as the Big Dipper. He liked that nickname. It was given by friends in the neighborhood. And I think you said that was because when he would walk into the classroom, he used to have to dip his head down, correct?
He'd walk into any room, he'd have to always dip his head underneath the door jamb.
Oh, okay.
And so he liked that, but then the sports writers called him Wilt the Still and things of that nature, and he never liked those names. It was the name he got when he was a kid that he appreciated the most.
Yeah, so you have here, it says, Wilt Distilled, he didn't appreciate that. He ultimately grew to 7'1" after college. Arguably the greatest athlete of all time. So in his high school years, 1952 to 1955, this kid won, his teams won 3 consecutive public league titles. Lost the 1953 city championship game to West Catholic. This is interesting. Guarded the entire game by 4 defenders.
Yeah, every game that he ever played was like that. Even when he played in college, it was 3 or 4 guys playing on him all the time.
Mm-hmm. City champions, 1954, 1955. The 55 team was ranked by many local sports writers as the greatest basketball team in the city's history. You know who else was on that team? Was anybody else well known on that team that you know
of? No.
Okay, so basically it was him, but I'm sure they were good. But if you have him carrying you, then
Oh yeah.
Once scored 90 points in a high school game against Roxborough High School.
Yeah, he played 3 consecutive games where he scored a total of 78, 73, and 90 points in 3 consecutive games. I mean, that's just obscene.
Yeah, and so I got here a 2-time first-team All-State. Was recruited by more than 200 universities throughout the country. You have here UCLA offered him to get into motion pictures.
Yeah.
Penn offered to buy him diamonds. So, I mean, there's.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is back, you have to remember, too, this is back in the 50s. And the recruitment the NCAA recruitment was much difficult. It was much more stringent than it is today. I mean, nowadays, I mean, look at some of the scandals that plagued a lot of the schools, like Louisville when Pitino was there.
Right, right.
SMU when Eric Dickerson played there, and thereafter, I mean, they got the death sentence because of the way that they were recruiting, giving people cars and getting them getting all kinds of things, apartments, whatever.
Yeah, remember the movie Blue Chips. Imagine what Wilt would have got. That kid, the whatchamacallit, the one kid got a house, you know what I mean? The one white kid got a tractor. He was like the Larry Bird dude, so Wilt might have got a house, a tractor, a sports car, you know what I mean? Whatever it would have taken him, I mean, probably like the hot, like fought. Well, and judging by his exploits in the bedroom that's been rumored, you know what I mean? Probably, at least 10 to 20 of the best co-eds in the school too,
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So so anyway, so we get back into here. His local YMCA team at age 15, he played on a team that won the YMCA national championship. Most players in the tournament were 17 or 18. So that must be something, when you're a kid that's like 7'1", you know what I mean? And so if you're 15, you can go against kids that are older than you, because you're bigger than them.
And it's not even just the size. It's just that his athletic ability was just so much more dominant than anybody else that ever played.
Yeah. And getting into that right here, I mean, this is a really interesting tidbit, and this would never happen nowadays. I mean, with the way social media is and the way somebody would have found this out nowadays. But you have right here played professionally at the ages of 16 and 17 under the name George Marcus. He played for the Pittsburgh Raiders at 16, averaged more than 40 points per game. Played for the Quakertown Phase at age 17, averaged 53.9 during the season, 74 points per game in the playoffs, and he was the league MVP.
Yeah, that was the league. It was called the National Basketball League. It was like they also had another league back then. It was called the Eastern League. Sonny Hill played in the Eastern League, and but yeah, he played in that league. He was in high school.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, and I'm getting right here. You have a note here. I'm going to get to in a minute, but it looks like Red Auerbach tried to recruit him. But real quick, I want to get into a comment here. I got my man Pat Bernard. What's up, guys? Hey Pat, how you doing, man? You can check my man Pat out. He's usually on Sunday mornings with Mike Lauro. They do a show called PM in the PM and AM PM in the AM or something like that. Pat and Mike in the AM, and they do a great job. So make sure you check them out. They'll be on tomorrow actually. So thanks for checking us out, Pat. But yeah, so we get into this here. 1954 high school summers. It says in the late 40s and early 50s, the best basketball players played in the summer leagues in the Catskill Mountains in New York State. What's this called? Kutzer's Resort. Kutzer's Resort. Okay.
Kutzer's, it was one of the big mountain resorts, Jewish resorts in southeastern New York State, and the owner brought Red Auerbach in to bring in college and pro players, and they would all the hotels would have teams, and the hotels would play each other, and it was basically for the viewing pleasure of their guests, because basketball was always a big urban sport, especially in the East, especially in New York, and very popular and Jewish people love basketball, and still do, and but anyway, especially back then, and so they would go and they would go up there and they would play in this league up there. So anyway, he's up there, and he was a bellboy. He worked for $13 a week in tips, and there's classic, there's classic stories. You see him in magazines like Life and Newsweek and Look, and they show him. He's outside. He's outside a room, and he's handing up a suitcase to another bellboy who's in the upstairs floor, and they were unloading the car, and that's how they would do it. He would just reach up and do it because he had I forget his reach was just obscene.
Yeah.
He had a 7.8 wingspan, so you can only imagine.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine trying to shoot over something like that, and so we you already touched on here. He played, it says Auerbach had him play one-on-one against B.H. Bourne, who was voted the most outstanding player in the 1953 NCAA finals. And ESPN Films 30 for 30 documentary about Chamberlain entitled Wilt Chamberlain, Borscht Bellhop.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I love them 30. I never saw that. I'll have to look that up. That sounds like a good one.
You look it up and you'll find it probably on YouTube. But anyway, this guy, Bourne, he was 6'9". He was the center on the 1952 national championship team. And Kansas got to the finals in 53, but I believe they lost. But anyway, Auerbach set him up with this guy Bourne, and he smoked Bourne. And the urban legend was that he beat Bourne so badly that Bourne didn't go into the NBA. And he was ultimately drafted, but he never did go to the NBA. And the irony of the whole thing is when he got out and Wilt was ready to go to college, Bourne helped his coach at Kansas recruit Wilt to go play at Kansas.
Yeah.
Because Kansas in the early 50s was a powerhouse.
Right. Well, they still kind of are.
And they still are. Yeah. They've been, Larry Brown, they won a championship with Larry Brown back in the 80s with Danny Manning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and speaking of the University of Kansas, so right here, Wilt moves on. He gets recruited, like you said, by the what's his name, Bourne. So
Bourne helps. The coach was named Phog Allen. His nickname was Phog, Phog. He's in the NCAA Basketball Hall of Fame, and he was like one of those old type of guys, like a John Wooden,
right?
From that type of school,
Yeah. So Wilt goes to University of Kansas. He plays there 1955 to 1958. He left after his junior year. Sophomore year was 1956 and 57. He was first team All-American. Lost the 1957 national championship game to North Carolina. Triple teamed the entire game. Team was ranked number 2 in the country. NCAA tournament MVP. So he was NCAA tournament MVP in a losing cause.
Yeah, they lost by 1 point.
Okay, well that must have been a hell of a Carolina team.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Carolina's. They always have a great team too.
Oh yeah. ACC basketball has always been good.
Yeah. So his junior year was 1957-1958. First team All-American again. Team ranked number 7 in the country. Opposing teams used 3 to 4 players to defend him at all times. He left this college before his senior year to go make money. He also was frustrated by being triple teamed and quadruple teamed all of the time. He sold his story. This is really interesting. He said it sold his story on why he was leaving college to Look magazine for $10,000. Now, $10,000 back in 19. I guess if you look at stuff in 2022's money, you think to yourself, $10,000. But $10,000 in 1958 was a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, the average NBA player back then was making $9,000, and he sold his story on why he was leaving college for $10,000.
Yeah, so
that gives you the scope of how the national media was focused on this guy at a young age. And before he was 21, like I mentioned, he was in Time, Life, Look, Newsweek magazine. He was in newsreels. So you could be sitting in a theater somewhere in Albuquerque, New Mexico, watching a newsreel, and there'd be Wilt Chamberlain. So just an amazing career. College career, he averaged just short of 30 points a game and 18 rebounds. I mean, he was amazing. It's just that he got tired of playing in college because of the racial abuse and getting quadruple teamed and triple teamed and all the hacking, things of that nature. So in 1958, he goes and he leaves and he plays for the Globetrotters for a year.
Well, and I got it. And here's one too. Harlem Globetrotters paid him $50,000. So that was worth $450,000 in 2019 dollars.
Yeah.
Toured with the Globetrotters in the former Soviet Union during the height of the Cold War. So that was that took some guts.
And they put him on the national. He was still on the national stage.
Right, and then you look at it, and not only were teams quadruple teaming him because they wanted to win, but I gotta think that if the average NBA salary is $9,000, and you got a dude that sold a story for $10,000, you want to make it your mission in life to shut this dude down.
Yeah,
well, yeah, I mean they tried, but I'm saying though, like this guy's selling a story, making more money than you're making all year.
Plus, you're a pro, and he's a kid, and you and your buddies, your guys on your team are saying to yourselves, well, this guy's got to come up and earn it like we did.
Right,
but
exactly.
This guy was just so superior to everybody else. I mean, just to talk about the money, they paid him $50,000 in 1958 when he signed the following year with the Philadelphia Warriors in 59-60 season. He signed for $30,000, and he was the highest paid player in the NBA.
Right.
In 1959, and he was paid $30,000. So that would have been the equivalent of 2019 dollars. That's probably the equivalent of that would have been the equivalent of maybe like close to $300,000.
Right.
That's a lot of money for a kid.
Well, and it kind of makes you wonder too, because he played with the Philadelphia Warriors 1959 to 1962. Well, he played with Hall of Famers Paul Averson, Tom Gola, and Guy Rogers. Now, they may not have ever said this, but I'm wondering, these guys are Hall of Fame players in their own right. So it maybe makes you wonder if maybe behind the scenes, if you gave them some couple shots and some truth serum, they might be like, yo, man, this is kind of some crap. This kid's coming in and getting paid more than us. Meanwhile, we're a hell of a player too,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, hey, that's the way it's always been in the NBA. Talent rules. I mean, look at nowadays. I mean, look at the money the guys make nowadays. Like top players make like what, like $35-40 million, something like that.
They could not pay him today. He would be part owner of the team. He'd have to be part of owner.
Well, he'd be like LeBron. It would be like LeBron. Like in today's NBA, even LeBron at the advanced age he is, like if you bring in LeBron James in, LeBron James is pretty much, he's not the GM in name, but he's working with the GM. Like for instance, I read an article on the Sixers, and if you notice, every move the Sixers made in the offseason was kind of after Joel Embiid spoke up.
Yeah. Like
Joel Embiid said the team needs to get tougher. Who do they go get? They go get PJ Tucker.
Right.
The team needs to get a little deeper. Who do they, they go out and they get Montrezl Harrell. They trade for D'Anthony Melton, who, great acquisition, by the way, D'Anthony Melton.
Great.
I like that kid.
Great acquisition.
But D'Anthony Melton, PJ Tucker, you got Montrezl Harrell. Like, he's a dog. You know what I'm saying? Like these.
House.
House hasn't. I know. Me and Diego were it's so funny. Me and Diego were laughing the other night because we're down at the game, and Diego's like, dude, he's like, hey, you put Daniel House in your article, because I wrote that article about the Sixers, and he's like, you put Daniel House in your article about the Sixers. He's like, what a good acquisition. He's like, you might want to take that Joel out. He's like, this dude's trash. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, let me go back and edit that Joel. You know what I mean? But hang on, let me get a couple comments here before we move on. I got my man Mike Lauro, I mentioned him earlier. Him and Pat will be on tomorrow morning, PM in the AM. Mike also does a college football show with us on Wednesday nights, and he does on the Out of Box Network, and he also does his own show. It's called Mike's Locker Room, 4for4 Locker Room. He does a great job. He said, "What's up? What's up, Mike? How you doing?" Here's my main man right here, my man Paul Spencer. You can check him out. He's on the Out of Box Network. He does a fight show. He does a cowboy show, and so check him out. He also obviously does the college show with me. He says, "What's up, fam? Feels like I'm sitting here with Dad, listening about the man, the myth, the legend. Wish I could have seen him live." Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Paul. Although if I saw him live, I'd be a lot older. So I don't know if I want to wish for that. I mean, I'm already 44. You know what I mean? And which is I still feel young at 44. But I don't want to wish my days away. But I get what you're saying, though, Paul. And thanks for checking us out. And Paul actually later tonight, he's going to be doing a show. He has this former Eagle on his show. You have to tell me what his name is, Paul. I apologize. I think it's like Marcus Thomas or Marcus Thames or whatever. But he's doing a show, kind of like an Eagles Cowboys preview for tomorrow.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So it's interesting. But Paul, I got to tell you, brother, you're going down. Oh, here we go. Here's his name right here, Marcus Thomas. He played in the league for the Eagles. So
sure.
But yeah, I always get a kick out of that. I like to see different people's perspectives on games and stuff like that.
Sure, that's how you learn.
Exactly. I mean, some people, some people don't like stuff like that. Like they want to stay on their side of the road. But for me, I think it's great to learn new things. You know what I mean?
But I mean, getting back to Wilt a second. I mean, he came in. He was the highest paid player in the league, but he averaged 30 points, 27 rebounds a game. He was the league MVP, the Rookie of the Year, and the All-Star Game MVP in his first season. So, he came in and he earned his keep, so to speak.
Yeah, and it says here, the Warriors lost to Boston 4-2 in the playoffs. Boston's strategy, that friggin' Tommy Heinsohn. I mean, rest in peace. I feel bad to speak ill will of the dead because I feel bad. I think Tommy Heinsohn passed last year.
Yeah.
But God, I hate it. I mean, I didn't even see him play live, but I couldn't stand that dude. Even as an announcer, the friggin' Boston homer. But anyway, Boston strategy. Heinsohn shoved Wilt when the Warriors took free throws to prevent Wilt from stopping Boston's fast break. Wilt hits Heinsohn, injures hand in Game 3, and his hand was injured for Games 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So.
And after the first year, he even threatened to quit because he got sick of being fouled all the time. Then triple teamed and double teamed. So they jumped his salary up to $65,000, which in today's money, that's $570,000. So just the threat of him saying, you know what, I'm going to quit. I don't need this.
Right.
They more than doubled his salary.
Yeah.
They more than doubled his salary.
Yeah. So now you look in this, you get into his second season. This dude averages 38.4 points per game, 27.2 rebounds per game. Only player to grab 55 boards in a game, scored more than 3,000 points. Only player in NBA history to grab more than 2,000 rebounds in a season with 2,149. They were swept in the playoffs by the Syracuse Nationals. Now, the Syracuse Nationals would later become the 76ers, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
That was in Hal Greer and some of those guys. Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we get to the 61-62 season. Now this is when he scores 100 points. Yeah. But I mean, this dude 50 points a game, 25.7 rebounds a game, and I'll just say this right now because I know some people and I know in your article, which was great by the way, but like you made some points at the bottom that were just like fascinating because I know a lot of people in like my generation and younger sit there and they want to say, the argument is, oh, Wilt didn't play anybody. Wilt only played Bill Russell. Well, let me tell you something. First off, that's a bunch of bullshit. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I don't care who you're playing. If you're playing air and averaging 50 points and 25 rebounds a game, that's impressive.
Yeah. No,
you know what I'm saying? Just First of all, and the other thing is, in today's NBA, the guys don't even play enough to average that.
Not just that. There's and well, we can talk about that at the end. I mean, when we answer the question, could he play today? But you know, and in my article, I make the argument that of course he could play today. He would be dominant today. And why? Who's gonna dominate him? Embiid, the Joker. I mean, he went up against guys that were that big or bigger, and he dominated them his whole career. I mean, it was, and he was doing it even into his late 30s. I mean, the guy was, you know, and I'll
we'll talk. Yeah, I was going to say, we'll definitely. Yeah, but I mean, all right. So getting back to this, I mean, this dude scores 4,029 regular season points. The only player to ever score more than 4,000 points in a season. Average this. I'm more impressed with this based on all this load management crap that they do today. 48.53 minutes per game. So if you put that in perspective, that's over a whole basketball game.
Yeah, that counts every game he played, and all the overtime.
Yeah,
overtime periods in the games. That's how it averages out that way.
Scored 100 points against the New York Knicks in March of 1962 in Hershey, PA. They lost, you know, unfortunately once again, and this is kind of a theme in Wilt's career, unfortunately, other than the one magical season in 66, 67.
Mm-hmm. Lost
to the Boston Celtics 4-3. Sam Jones hit a shot with 2 seconds left. So, you know, that's a tough one, you know.
Yeah, it's a tough loss.
All right, so now we get to the point the Warriors moved to San Francisco. He plays for the San Francisco Warriors from 62 to 65. 62-63 season, Philadelphia Warriors are sold and team relocated to San Francisco. Team broke up as many of the Philly-based stars. Iverson and Gola did not want to move to California. He averaged 44.8 points per game, 24.3 rebounds. Warriors lost 49 of the 80 games and missed the playoffs. Well, I guess that's because the Iverson and Gola didn't want to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
63-64 season, the Warriors make another, you know, they're good again. They make the NBA Finals. They lost 4 games to 1 to Boston. You know, obviously this was the height of the Boston dominance. I mean, this is where Bill Russell won 11 rings in 13 years, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is the Russell era. Now that's one thing though. I mean, because we'll definitely get to that rivalry, but you know, as far as individual talent, Wilt was the man. But would you say that Bill Russell was the greatest winner of all time? I mean, or at least one of them. I mean, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to argue 11. I mean, 11 titles in 13 years. And if you look at and I hate the Celtics, so I hate saying this, but if you look at the supporting cast, like the Sixers had a great supporting cast too. I mean, they had Hal Greer and Billy Cunningham, but so did the Celtics.
They were much deeper, yeah. But I mean, Russell won, I think, 2 high school state championships. He won the NCAA championship. He was on the Olympic team that won a medal in 56. And he won 11 rings in 13 years. So yeah, he would be the and if you look at all sports, he's the most rings. And then right behind him, I believe it's DiMaggio.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has 10. Yogi Berra has close as like maybe 8 or 9. So I mean, some of the old Yankees. And then there's a couple guys in the NBA that had Robert Horry, Big Shot Bob had 6, right? And so there's quite a few guys. I think Tim Duncan had 5 rings.
Yeah. So MJ has 6.
MJ had 6, and the guy that played for Sally.
Yeah.
John Sally, he had a number of them. He had 2 or 3 at Detroit. He had a couple with Chicago. He had a couple with the Lakers. I mean, but anyway, as far as Russell would be without a doubt
because I mean, you know, just looking at his career, it seems like every year, you know, except for that 67 season, at least in Philadelphia, you know, Philadelphia had a hell of a team, whether it was the Warriors or when he comes back with the Sixers, which we'll get into. And they couldn't get over that Boston hump, But anyway, 63, 64, he averages 36.9 and 22.3 boards. 64, 65, San Francisco Warriors are in financial trouble. Wilt's traded to the 76ers, who were the Syracuse Nationals. So now Wilt comes back to Philadelphia, traded for Connie Durkin, Paul Newman, Lee Schaefer.
Was that it?
And $150,000. Okay. With the Sixers, he averages 30 points, 30 points per game, 22.3 rebounds per game. Lost in the Eastern Conference Finals again, 4-3. Sixers lost 110-109. What a heartbreaker. And you have it right here. This is the famous Johnny Most where he goes, Havlicek stole the ball. Havlicek stole the ball.
5 seconds left in the game, and Havlicek Hal Greer goes to inbound the ball. Havlicek stole it and saved the game. Now,
ironically, that almost to more modern day viewers, that would almost be kind of like how Isaiah Thomas threw the ball in and Larry Bird stole the ball.
Yeah,
in a sense,
Oh, exactly.
That's one of
the greatest plays I've ever seen. You talk about heads up ball.
Yeah, well, that
guy's just amazing.
Larry legend. I mean, that's another guy. There's 2 guys in all-time basketball that I feel get a little bit of disrespect, and that's Wilt Chamberlain because of the reasons that I said, and Larry Bird gets a lot of disrespect, and especially when I hear somebody come and say, "Oh, Larry Bird wouldn't be anything today," I look at you like you got 4 heads. I'm like, let me tell you something. Larry Bird could play in any era. In fact, I'd argue that Larry Bird might even be better if he played nowadays because, first off, there's more of an emphasis on the 3-point shot.
Exactly.
Now, Larry Bird was an unbelievable shooter, but they didn't shoot as many 3-pointers back then.
That wasn't.
Guys jacket. Imagine if Larry Bird jacked 10 threes a night.
Exactly.
I bet you he would have averaged 4 or 5 more points per game.
Kareem said that on record that Bird was the best player he ever saw.
Wow, he even said that over his own boy.
He said that, exactly, yeah. He said over Magic. Worthy said that Bird was the best player he ever saw.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a number of guys that have been on record, and you could go into YouTube and search these things or find documentaries about Chamberlain, and they'll say that he was, Bird was. I mean, I'm talking about Bird. That Bird was the best guy that they played. I mean, when those, and the more recent guys.
Yeah, and it's a thing. I mean, I'm a guy that hates the Celtics, but just as a pure basketball fan, it's a shame he hurt his back because it did cut his career out by. He might have had another 3-4 really successful years, but he hurt his back and he couldn't.
Yeah.
He was out there on that dream team, but I mean, he was kind of like a shell of him former self. I mean, you saw him laying there on the ground, and he was kind of done, and I guess that's kind of like that's Larry Legend. I mean, the guy was out there. I think I read he was out there on his own tractor doing his own work.
That's what he was. He was doing work at his house, doing concrete work or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a shame,
Mm-hmm.
I got a comment here. Edge of Philly Sports, giving you credit. They said the Wilt article is awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And make sure you check that out. For any history buffs out there. But all right, so he's back. Now he's with the 76ers full time, 65 through 68. The 1965-66 season. Philadelphia 76ers are 55-25. Hal Greer, Chet Walker, Luke Jackson, Larry Costello are the other starters. Wilt wins the second league MVP. He averages 33.5, 24.6 boards. Sixers lose in the Eastern Conference Championship to them damn Celtics again, 4-1. Poor shooting from the supporting cast.
Yeah.
All right. So now I got to think we're entering the 66-67 season. How many, what are we talking? Four or 5 times? Well, 4 or 5 times that he actually lost to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Championship. It looks like at least 2 years in a row here.
Yeah.
And then once with the Warriors. So I guess that's 3 times. All right.
And then his rookie year.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, and then of course when he was with the Warriors, he lost on the championship game.
Right.
Okay. So Wilt enters the 66-67 season. First off, I mean, you were probably a little kid, but did Grandpop ever say, like, was there a lot of pressure on this team in the city, to finally get over this hump? Because I mean, you're entering the 66-67 season, and if they don't get it done that year, you almost wonder if maybe they're going to trade a guy or two.
Well, there was a lot of pressure on Wilt, and the pressure was that they wanted him to score less and do other things like facilitate the ball more, because you had so many. You had great players on that team. You had Hal Greer, you had Chet Walker, you had Billy Cunningham. I mean, these guys are all Hall of Famers,
right?
And so he, so he became a better facilitator, and in that year the team had set an NBA record as far as wins at that time. They had an 800 and some win-loss percentage, 68 wins, 13 losses. He won another MVP, 24 points, 24 rebounds a game.
Yeah, so just looking at this, he cut his points down by he must have facilitated more, because his points went from 33 to 24.
Oh.
Okay, so I guess he did get other guys involved.
Oh yeah. And then they beat the Celtics 4-1 in the finals, Eastern Conference Finals, and then they beat Rick Barry and the San Francisco Warriors. Nate Thurman 4-2. They won the NBA championship.
Yeah, and even to this day, I mean, if you broke down the top 5, 6 NBA teams of all time, I mean, some older historians would argue that this team would definitely have to be up there.
You can go on and do research, and you can find pundits that will talk about the 10 best NBA teams of all time, and this is definitely always listed. This team is always listed.
Yeah.
This team, the 86 Celtics.
83 Sixers probably up there too. Are they up there?
The Bulls team that won 72
well,
games.
Yeah, they have to be.
It depends on the author or the pundit. A lot of times the Malone team, Dr. J team is mentioned. Sure.
Yeah, so I mean that's impressive that at least we have 2 teams, a team up there.
Yeah, at least two of the top 10 teams of all time have been Philadelphia basketball teams.
Yeah, here's my man Sean Kilrain. He says, "What's up, Joey and Uncle Mark? Great stuff on Wilt. Thanks, Sean. How you doing? You can check Sean does the show with me on Mondays, and also the college football show. So, okay, all right. So Philadelphia gets their first title. So they come back. Now, I would think a lot of people, that team being, especially winning 68 games, a lot of people probably thought, hey, you know what? There's a changing of the guard. The 76ers have a great chance of repeating.
Sure.
So now you look at this team, 67-68. Wilt averages 24.3 and 23.8 rebounds per game. He wins his 4th MVP award.
So that's 3 years in a row.
3 years in a row. This must have been extreme. Well, first off, Wilt had a quadruple double in a March 68 game against the Lakers. He had 53 points, 32 boards, 14 assists, 24 blocks, and 11 steals. They always say records are made to be broken. I don't think anybody's ever breaking this one.
Nobody's going to touch that.
No, first off, how the hell does a center get 11 steals?
The guy was just.
I mean, that's
he was the fastest guy,
and 24 like how that's insane. I mean, I got to admit, like I look at that and I almost think it's a misprint.
The fastest guy. When we talk about could he play today, and in the article I wrote, I make the arguments as to why, but one of them was he had the speed. He ran a 4.640, which is what Jerry Rice used to run, a 4.640. And in the NBA, back when he was playing with the Sixers, Hal Greer was the fastest guy in the league, and in practice they used to run from end line to half court sprints, drills, and he beat Hal Greer every time. And Hal Greer was the fastest guy in the NBA. So I mean, still, can he get 11 steals? Of course he can. Why? Because he's got a 7'8" wingspan, and he's the fastest guy in the league.
But it's still amazing.
That's what I mean. This guy is just such a freak of nature.
This must have been really heartbreaking because the Sixers are on the verge of, in all likelihood, repeating. Because back then, it looks like the Warriors had a hell of a team, but if you get past Boston, odds are you're probably going to win the title.
Yeah.
Well, the Sixers had a 3-1 lead, and they wound up blowing the lead. Boston beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals 4-3.
It's like what happened to us in 81.
Yeah, and they would have won. Yeah, they would have won it that year.
And then we would have played Houston, and
they would have smoked Houston. Yeah.
Same deal.
So now at this point, Wilt wants to go to the West Coast. He forces a trade to the Lakers for Darryl Imhoff, Archie Clark, and Jerry Chambers. So, well, this pretty much ended competitive basketball in Philadelphia for until George McGinnis and the Doc came, correct?
Yeah, till exactly till about 74, 75.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah. I think
the Doctor came in 76, and McGinnis came the year before that.
Yeah, they had Doug Collins and McGinnis, right. And they kind of got relevant, and then they signed the Doc, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right, so
it was the 72-73 team was the team that had the lowest win.
They were like 9-73 or something like that.
Yeah, 9-73. That was the worst team ever until Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte.
They lost 8. They won 8 games one year.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that 72-70. Yeah, that team had like Fred Carter. Mantle Carter was on that team, and he was like the one good player they had, pretty
Steve
much.
Nicks.
Oh, Steve Nicks. Okay, yes, that's right, Steve Nicks.
Yeah.
The mayor of Mixville.
Yeah.
So, all right, so Wilt goes to Los Angeles now. He's paid an unprecedented sum at this point of $250,000 after taxes. He plays with fellow Hall of Famers Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. He averages 20.5 points per game and 21.1 rebounds per game. Again, loses to the Celtics, this time 4-3.
And this was Russell's last championship.
Yeah,
Russell retired after this season.
Yeah, that's actually, and I was doing some research on the rivalry, and that's this is actually a really interesting story because Russell talks about how Game 7 was in the Great Western Forum, and Russell looked up and he saw, how like when a team wins the championship, they have like the balloons and stuff come down.
Oh, yeah.
So Russell saw that and he used that as motivation, kind of.
Yeah.
And wasn't Russell a player coach on that team
too? He was the player coach on that team.
Okay. Yeah.
That was the only year he was the player coach.
Yeah. I did see that. So. Yeah. So Wilt's in LA, and back then too. I mean, things have kind of changed. I mean, Showtime Lakers changed that fortune, but back then the Lakers always lost to the Celtics. It was like pretty much a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the Lakers make the finals. Like we touched on, the Sixers suck at this point, so it's basically Wilt's with the Lakers. 69-70 season, he suffers a serious right knee injury and misses several months of the season. He averages 27.3 points, 18.4 rebounds per game. He loses the championship to the Knicks 4-3. The Knicks have all 5 starters are in the NBA Hall of Fame. So that must have been Clyde Frazier, Dave
DeBusschere, Bill Bradley.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was,
same as the year that they played him in 74 when they
He was
lost.
72.
And they lost it to 72-73.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, he beat him in 72.
They beat him 71-72. They lost at 72-73, and that was, yeah. And the Knicks still had all those Hall of Famers, Earl Monroe from Philly.
Here's an interesting one. The 70-71 season, Wilt averages again 27 and 18. They lose to the Milwaukee Bucks, so they lose to Jabbar. Because now at this point, I think we actually touched on. I think I saw this as well. Wilt was kind of a mentor to Jabbar when he first came in the league, but then they had a falling out. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Wilt was like one of the only guys to ever block Jabbar's skyhook.
Yeah, he did it repeatedly. There's skyhooks where Kareem would go up, he'd block it, would come back to Kareem, he'd go up, he'd block it again.
Okay.
I mean, one guy blocked it from behind. Ralph Sampson was one of the guys that blocked it. You could count the guys on one hand.
Yeah, because it was almost. I mean, it was pretty much an unstoppable shot.
Oh yeah, but
mostly
he could do it.
Right. So yeah, but I just wanted to bring up the Kareem thing because 70-71, Wilt loses NBA Finals 4-1 to the Bucks, but the Lakers were without Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. So
yeah,
it's kind of like kind of reminds me of when the Lakers played the Pistons in '89. And I mean, no, I'm not going to disrespect the Pistons because I think the Pistons should have beat them in '88 actually if Isaiah didn't get hurt. But the Lakers had like Magic was hurt, Byron Scott's hurt, so
exactly.
You're not going to win it. You're not going to win a championship. You're missing like 2 of your best players. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even as good as Wilt was. So anyway, so Wilt finally, after all these close calls, in 71-72, Wilt finally wins his second championship. Wasn't this the Lakers team that won like 35 in a row or something too?
33 straight games.
33. Okay, it was 33. Yeah. So this was one of the greatest teams ever assembled too.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Wilt really changed this game at this point. He averages 14.8 and 19.2 boards. His team Elgin Baylor retires. After the streak, owner Jack Ken Cook gave all the players a $5 pen set. $5 pen set instead of a suspected trip to Hawaii. Wilt orders teammates to crush pen sets at center court.
Yeah.
That sounds like some Norman Brayman type stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we were doing all time, if Jack Ken Cook was in Philadelphia, he'd be on our all time douchebag list for a move like that.
You better believe it.
That's like buying Mike Quick a friggin' golf bag with no golf clubs in that joint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, Wilt manhandles Kareem in the NBA Finals. Wilt dominates, in the Western Conference Finals. Excuse me. Wilt dominates the New York Knicks and wins NBA championship 4-1.
And he does it with a broken right hand.
Okay, so now, did he break his hand in the finals, or did he break his hand during the year? Because I'm just wondering why he only averaged 14 points a game.
He averaged 14 points a game because they had the Lakers had a power forward named Happy Hairston who could shoot. They had a guy that came out of Columbia. His name was Jim McMullen, a great corner shooter. And they had West, who was arguably the best outside shooter in the game at the time.
Right.
And they also, as the point guard, his name was Gail Goodrich. And he played
Gail Goodrich, yeah.
He played at UCLA. And those guys were just, he didn't have to score as much.
I gotcha. So
it was basically
they were just a well-oiled machine and you know, winning 33 straight games. Obviously, they were a hell of a team. You know what I mean?
And you have to remember, all these seasons, he's averaging 45, 46 minutes a game, and he's playing every game. There's no such thing as load management for this guy.
There is for him, but it's a different kind of load management, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. It's evidenced by his what? Didn't he write a book, 20,000 Women or something like that? Yeah. That's his load management.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, so Wilt wins a second championship in his second to last season in the NBA. His final season in the NBA is 72-73. He averages 13 points again, 13 points per game, 18.6 rebounds. Now, this is a really interesting tidbit here. Sets an NBA record with a .727 field goal percentage.
Yeah, almost 73%. Now, some of them, argue, good, sure, a lot of them were jams, but a lot of them, he had this great finger roll, and he did what a lot of guys did back then, which you don't really see too much anymore. He used the backboard.
Yeah,
you don't see a lot of guys today use the backboard. I mean, Hal Greer used to always use the backboard, and I mean, it was common.
You know, the only guy, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a guy. When I think of guys that use the backboard, the only guy I really think of is the big fundamental Tim Duncan.
Yeah,
Tim Duncan. I got all my years of watching basketball. The only guy I really picture using the backboard was Tim Duncan.
Yeah, Tim Duncan would get the ball in the low post, he'd turn around, and it'd be off that backboard, and it would fall every time.
Yeah, he's the only guy.
Well, players used what was around. I mean, I mean, the backboard's a tool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
the backboard is a tool if you know how to use it properly.
Yeah,
and a lot of players, it's in today's game, you don't see it because they're throwing it up from 35 feet or whatever.
Yeah, let me just get one quick comment here. Here's my man Dave Yarnell. You can check him out on the Patterson Avenue Fanatics. He's also on the he also goes on the 215 Boys on the Out of Box Network. Hey fellas, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Dave. And you're a great guy, but I gotta keep it real with you though. I hope your Christmas Eve isn't the greatest because I gotta root for the Eagles tomorrow. Sorry, but Merry Christmas, brother. Thanks for checking us out. But no, but anyway, so we get back to Wilt's final season. He wins 60 games. They lose to the Knicks 4-1, but again they're hampered by injuries. Jerry West and your guy Hairston was out. So again they were shorthanded and they come up short. All right, so Wilt is now done with the NBA. It looks like now what is it looks like, but he moves on to the ABA in 73-74 to a team called the San Diego Conquistadors.
Yeah,
that's a great name.
Oh yeah,
that's a cool name.
He goes to the ABA, but what happens is he's still under he has 1 year left on his contract with the Lakers. So the Lakers sue him and prevent him from actually suiting up and playing. So he was actually a player coach. And but the thing about Wilt is he didn't like coaching. So he allowed his assistant
Stan
Lallback, who used to coach. He coached for like the San Antonio Spurs and I think it was the Houston Rockets. He's been around. I mean, he's coached in a lot of different teams and things.
Yeah, well,
so he took over.
Well, I'm looking here. The team was not successful. They were 37-47, and you see that a lot with great. One thing about great players usually don't make great coaches. You look at like baseball managers. There's been a lot of examples of a guy that was a great player. Well, I mean, you only have to look to Philadelphia to find one. Ryan Sandberg. Ryan Sandberg was a great player. I mean, if you looked at if Ryan Sandberg walks into any bar around Wrigley Field, he probably doesn't even have to buy a beer because Ryan Sandberg is a legend in Chicago. Philadelphia, he was a trash manager. Sure, dude was trash, horrible. You know what I mean? And you see that a lot. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So this is the end. This is the end of Wilt's career in essence. And let's just look at some of these accomplishments here. NBA Hall of Fame, obviously, 13-time All-Star, 10-time NBA All-First Team, 4-time League MVP, 11-time rebounding champion, 2-time NBA All-Defensive Team, 2-time NBA champion, 1-time assist champion, 59-60 Rookie of the Year, 59-60 All-Star Game MVP, lifetime averages, 30.1 points per game, 22.9 rebounds per game, 31,419 total career points, 23,924 total career rebounds, never fouled out of a game.
And he
Now
averaged close to 46 minutes a game, and he played almost every game of every season.
Yeah, and that's
except the season he ripped his knee out.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and compare that to nowadays where, I get it. I mean, I know the NBA, it's about the playoffs and all, but it's frustrating. I don't care what anybody says. It's frustrating as hell. Say you're a guy out there, it's Christmas time. You got a family of 4. You know what I mean? You go out there, you look at the schedule, and you got a little boy that like idolizes, say, LeBron James, right? You go out there, you drop what nowadays 4 kids, you're dropping at least a few $100 even just for nosebleeds.
Yeah.
So you drop a few $100. You're trying to go down there on a February night, and what's the first thing you see? Oh, LeBron's out, load management, or they make up an injury and say, oh, sore hamstring or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And here you're a poor father that goes out there dropping $200. Now, you could say what you want about back in the day, but if you want to, unless the guy was hurt, if you wanted to see Wilt Chamberlain, guess what? You saw Wilt Chamberlain.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's
well, these guys. That's just the way these guys were back in the day. It's called character. It's called pride in your profession. It's not just they were making decent money, but they weren't making the sums of money that these guys are making today. It's obscene. What you stop and think about it. What's Tobias Harris makes $439,000 a game. Well, Wilt was making $250,000 a year.
Right. Oh, I know.
I mean, and he's the greatest player ever. I mean, I realize it's different times, different economic times, but I mean, Tobias Harris is a nice player, but he's not a max player.
No, but it's funny you said that though, because I do agree with you that he's not a max player, but he's playing great basketball right now. But yeah, I agree. He's not a max player. Dave Yarnell here with a comment about a great player that wasn't the greatest coach. He says Maurice Cheeks was a great player, bad coach. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he was necessarily a bad coach, but yeah, I agree with you though. He wasn't a great coach. I mean,
Ted Williams was the manager of the Washington Senators back when I was a kid in like 1970. Horrible manager. Because guys like him,
guys can't do what he did. I mean, Ted Williams, you hit 400. You tell a guy you got a guy that hits like 250 up there, and you're like, why the hell can't you hit the ball? And you're like, dude, I'm not you.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
But that's the thing. They don't. Coaching is teaching. Coaching is teaching.
Yeah.
And these guys that are so superior to everybody else, they either don't have the patience to teach or don't know how to.
Yeah.
Teaching is it's a craft.
Well, a lot of the great baseball managers are like former catchers. Like traditionally, like a lot of the great baseball managers are like Mike Scioscia was a great manager for a number of years.
Sure he was.
I know there's more that I'm not thinking of. Joe Torre. Joe Torre. I mean, and a lot of those guys get that from handling pitchers, sitting in the dugout, because you think about it, a catcher, a lot of times, especially a backup catcher, a lot of times, like a guy that maybe you're a backup catcher, maybe if there's 162, maybe you play 55, 60 games in a year
tops,
and a lot of times you're sitting there, you're charting pitchers, you're kind of, and you're really learning the game.
Oh yeah.
I got my man Sean Kilrain here. He says Wilt is the true Iron Man, makes LeBron look like a bitch with his play and his stats. I don't know if I'd say it. I mean, I agree to a point, Sean. I mean, as far as load management, I agree with you. But LeBron James is a pretty great. I think LeBron James can play in any era too. The guy's a great player. But I hear you though, Sean. So anyway, we're getting right here now. We already touched on the career accomplishments, but look at the rule changes to stop this guy's dominance. I mean, the lane was widened from 12 to 16. What's that? 12 feet to 16 feet, 1964.
Mm-hmm.
Inbounds passes. There's no passes over the backboard.
Because what happens is they used to inbound the ball over the backboard. He would just jump up and jam it.
Yeah, you
And
really couldn't stop
you
that.
couldn't. Nobody could stop that. So they said, no, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Free throws, players cannot cross plane of the free throw line until the ball hits the rim or passes over the basket. Yeah, because he was a notoriously bad free throw shooter.
But what he would do is
He probably would miss it and then try to get his own rebound.
what he would do is he would throw the ball up in the air, and he had this amazing leaping ability. I mean, he could triple jump over 50 some feet. He was like only a couple feet short of an Olympic record.
Yeah.
So he would then take off and he would just run in the air and grab it and dunk it. And they had to change that rule. And then goaltending, obviously, offensive goaltending. They reversed that rule later, but I mean they changed that. There's 4 rule changes made just to stop his dominance, just to level the playing field, because he was that superior to everyone else.
Yeah, and you have right here, because a lot of people say that Michael Jordan is the greatest player to ever play.
Yep.
But right here it says Wilt speaks to Michael Jordan. He says, "Just remember, Michael, when you played, they changed the rules to make it easier for you to dominate. When I played, they changed the rules to make it harder for me."
Yeah.
A lot of truth to that, definitely. In fact, it is truth. But anyway, and here's some other interesting tidbits. We already touched on, Wilt had a lot of great rivals, but I would say the 2 biggest ones were Wilt and Bill Russell as far as individual, and Wilt versus Kareem. So Wilt versus Russell, regular season, Russell was 57 and 37, 57 wins, 37 losses. Russell averaged 14 points per game, 23 boards per game. Wilt averaged 30 points per game, 28 rebounds per game. Another interesting, I don't know if we touched on this, but Wilt and Bill Russell, even though they were great rivals on the court, they were great friends off the court.
Yeah.
They were great friends. In fact, there's I think I saw it on YouTube. There might even be a 30 for 30. I don't remember where I saw it. But basically, a lot of times the Sixers used to play the Celtics on Christmas, and Wilt, what was it? Either it was up. If it was up there, I think Wilt would stay with him, or I think a lot of times Wilt would let Bill stay with him. Something like
Russell
that, right?
would come to his family's home, and his mother and father would have Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, and he would stay with them, and he would take a nap, and then they'd hang out together, and then the next thing you know, they'd go down to used to be the convention center, which is across. It's now part of Hospital of University of Pennsylvania. It's across from CHOP, and then they would play.
Yeah,
they were great friends. Wasn't like an Ali Frazier type thing where, Frazier hated Ali, and Ali was always trying.
In fact, I think Bill Russell spoke at his funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember if he gave a eulogy or anything, but I know, because I remember when I was doing some research on this, and that was one of the things that was really fascinating, was the fact that these guys had such a really good friendship. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, if you look at you kind of touched on it a little bit, but you look at the times. I mean, this was right in the heart of all the, you had the Vietnam War era, you had
civil
rights era. Yeah, so it kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? It was,
these guys were both great players, and they had mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
And wasn't a lot of trash talking. It's not like today. A lot of these guys will talk a lot of trash. It's part of the game.
Yeah.
But back then, they didn't really carry one that way as much.
Yeah. So, and then of course Wilt's other big rock. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get to the playoffs. The playoffs, Russell was 29 wins, 20 losses. So Russell won 29-20. Russell averaged 15 points, 25 rebounds. Wilt averaged 26 points, 28 rebounds. So now we get to Wilt versus Kareem. Like I said, when Kareem was coming up, Wilt was a mentor, but they had a little bit of a falling out. So this became a big rivalry. Regular season, Wilt was 9 wins, 8 losses. Wilt averaged 16 points per game, 17 boards per game. Kareem averaged 32 points per game, 16 rebounds per game. So,
and you have to remember, Wilt was, when Kareem came into the league, Wilt was probably over 30. Kareem was a kid,
Yeah, there was a big age. Yeah, there was a big age difference.
Big age difference. Big age difference.
Right, and also the age difference, if you really think about it, is even more than it would have been probably today, because today they do the load management and stuff. Back then, Wilt's playing over 48 minutes a night. So if you're 30, that's a lot of wear and tear on them legs.
Sure, but for him, it was no. For him, it wasn't. It was no effort. It was no problem.
Right. Playoffs. Kareem was 6-5 against Wilt. Kareem averaged 30 points, 17 boards. Wilt averaged 16 points, 19 boards. Wilt, we touched on this before, but just to name who exactly all four guys were. There were four guys to ever block Kareem Skyhook: Wilt, Ralph Sampson, Manute Bol, and a guy by the name of Bill Willoughby. Played for Houston.
Yeah, he did it from behind. Remember
Gotcha, I never heard. Yeah, I never heard of him.
Behind. Well, that's how that was his claim to fame.
All right, and then why don't you touch on some of these other because these other sports here.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to refer to my. I have notes, and then I wrote an article. That's on the website. His athletic ability was just unparalleled, and the things that he could have done would have been. It was just it's amazing. He retired from basketball at 36. He began another athletic career. He became a professional volleyball player. They had something called the International Volleyball Association. He played for 6 years. He was a player owner, and I played for 2 different clubs in Southern California. And then the league folded in '80 because they couldn't get. They played in 7 states, mostly through the West. They just couldn't get enough traction. They couldn't get television viewers and things. But at the end, he was honored they enshrined him in the IVA Hall of Fame. So he not only is in a Hall of Fame for basketball, he's also for volleyball. He was when Wilt was in high school and at University of Kansas, he was an outstanding track and field athlete. In fact, that was his number one sport. That was his favorite sport. He ran a 10.9 90 100-yard dash and a 20.9 220-yard dash. He ran a 49-second 440 and a 158 and a half mile. Now, these times are not far off from world records. He threw a shot put 56 feet. He triple jumped more than 50 feet. He was the Big 8 conference champion, high jump champ, 3 years in a row. And I submit to you, and I wrote about this in the article, if he had dedicated himself solely to track and field instead of basketball, he could have easily represented the U.S. Olympic track and field team in the 1960 Olympics in Rome in several events, maybe even the decathlon. That's how great an athlete Wilt was.
Wow, that's amazing.
All right. Another sport, professional football. In 1964, Wilt's at a summer camp up in upstate New York. And up there at the time, there's a legendary coach, became a Hall of Famer. Name was Hank Stram, coached for the Kansas City Chiefs. So he gave him a tryout. So they were out there on the field, and Stram would throw the ball, or have somebody throw the ball over the goalpost. Wilt would go up, wouldn't even have to jump. He would just reach up with one arm and grab the ball, catch all the passes. So then Stram says to him, "Okay, let's, have it running a 40." So he's the guy's dressed in a suit. So he takes off his shoes and socks, and he's in dress trousers. He runs a 4.6 barefoot. Now again,
so he probably would have even been faster.
Oh yeah, if he had spikes, he would have been faster. Now again, remember 4.6, 40. That's what Jerry Rice ran. That's what Jerry Rice used to run. Okay, just to put that in perspective. When Stram asked Wilt if he wanted to play wide receiver for him, he said no. He said, "I want to be the quarterback." Now imagine, the Chiefs had a guy as the quarterback back in the time, in the 60s, early 70s. His name was Lenny Dawson. Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the most accurate passers in professional football history. Now imagine Wilt playing
at 7-1.
At 7-1.
He would have set all kinds of records.
At 7-1, he played at 290. He ran a 4.6. defensive backs in the 60s were probably 180, 190. Nobody would have been able to stop him, you know. And they, in addition to that, stop and think about the packages you could put him in: 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, or down by the goal line. When I was a kid, well, I'm a kid in high school. In the 70s, there was a guy by the name of Sam Bam Cunningham. He was Randall's brother. He played for the New England Patriots, and he arguably was one of the greatest goal line backs ever. He and Marcus Allen, and what would happen is he could get the ball and he could leap over everybody else. Now imagine this guy. He's 7'1". He's stronger than everybody else in this league. He can jump higher than everybody else in the league because he's a champion high jumper, and he's stronger than everybody else. They would have to, I submit to you, they would have to change the rules of the game of football for him to lower the playing field, to even the playing field for everybody else, just like they did in basketball. That's how great an athlete this guy was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing the things he could do. And then the end of my article, I wrote, could Wilt dominate the NBA today? I mean, how many times you hear people talk on sports radios?
I hear it all the time. It drives me crazy because it's people that don't know what the hell they're talking about, because you have some, well, go ahead, you have some stats here that would show that he would be dominant as heck.
Okay. Size. Wilt stood 7'1" and like 1/4. He weighed anywhere from 275 to 300 pounds. He had a 7'8" wingspan. And after his first few years in the league, when he filled out, he had the physique of a competitive bodybuilder. And nobody in the NBA history, even today, would be able to dominate him in the low post. Embiid or Joker, there's no chance. There's no chance. I mean, you don't see Embiid down in the low post anyway. Speed. Wilt was arguably one of the fastest players in the NBA. As I mentioned, he ran a 4.6 40. And then when he played with the Sixers, he routinely beat Hal Greer, as I talked about earlier, Hall of Fame guard, in the half-court races at team practices. And Greer was the fastest guy in the NBA at that time. So here's a guy, he's the biggest guy. He's big, he's heavy, and he's fast. Leaping ability. Wilt possessed a vertical leap of 48 inches, the highest distance ever recorded. And it was recorded, and it's been reported that he could take coins off the top of a backboard. And he was one of the few players in NBA history who blocked Kareem's skyhook but he did it more than once. As Joe mentioned, it was like 4 people, but he did it more than one time. Strength. Wilt was probably the strongest person ever playing in the NBA. He could deadlifts more than 700 pounds, clean and jerk, where you pick the barbell up off the ground, at 325 pounds, and bench press more than 500. At the age of 59, Wilt was bench pressing 465 pounds. Shaq's personal best, Shaq, 450. In 1984, when he was 48 years old, he co-starred in a movie, Conan the Destroyer, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Universe, Mr. Olympia. The Terminator. They had a great friendship that went back years. And in attesting to Wilt's strength, the Terminator said that most bodybuilders would do a tricep extension workout with 120 pounds. Wilt would use 180 pounds. And he said that nobody ever, he said he never saw anybody ever do that before. I mean, here's a man. There's also a story, and that's true. This is a guy that was he was an NBA executive. This is in the 60s, late 60s. And he had a VW Bug, about 3,000-pound car. He had a flat tire, but he didn't have a jack. So Wilt goes over, picks the car up so the guy can change his tire. And there's a ton of stories about like this. He picked guys up and I did some research, and he said he actually picked Arnold up off the ground.
Oh, Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. He did that in games. He broke up fights. That's how he broke up fights. When he was coaching at the Conquistadors in the AVA, the Conquistadors had a rookie on the team, a guy by the name of Caldwell Jones.
Former future Sixer.
He came future Sixer. Well, anyway, Wilt went up for a jam. Caldwell went to block it. Caldwell Jones' hand was shattered. There's stories of Wilt going in and dunking the ball with such force that the ball hit somebody on the head and the guy would get a concussion. I mean, this is just how.
How about you know what I know what story I don't remember the exact story. I wish I wrote it down, but we talked about it before. He played. Was it Magic's rookie year, or it was like the Showtime Lakers, where like Magic talked about this. I remember, but Wilt was retired.
Oh, he had been retired for
he had been retired for some time, and Wilt was playing with like a couple guys, and they were
college guys,
and they were playing Showtime Lakers, and like Wilt was kicking their ass or something.
And what happened was, it was a game. It was Magic and Wilkes and Norm Nixon,
right?
A couple of them.
Yeah, it was a couple of them. I don't think Kareem was there. It was a few of the other guys.
No, it was the Showtime Lakers back then, and it was Wilt with like 4 college guys playing, and the game ended in a tie, if I recall. And so Wilt says, "Come on, let's play one more quarter. These are all block every shot." And so Magic and those guys were like laughing. Yeah, sure. He blocked every shot in the game.
Yeah, that is true, because Magic, I think, said that. That's where I heard that story.
He blocked every shot.
Yeah.
You could find these interviews on YouTube, and it's just amazing, the stuff that he did. Durability. In his 13-year career, he led the league in games played 5 times, and in minutes 9 times out of 13 years. In his 1961-62 season, like Joe had mentioned earlier, he averaged more than 48 minutes a game. He only had 1 major injury in 69-70, and he played only 12 regular season games. However, he came back in the playoffs, and he led the Lakers to the finals, but they lost in a classic 7-game series. They never practiced load management. There was no such thing as this. Wilt, also, in addition to having all these other amazing qualities, he was as he got older in life, he took up tennis. He became a very good tennis player. He did Hawaiian triathlons, and he did a number of them. He was very, very good at that. I mean, there's nothing he couldn't do. It's interesting. I tried to find research on him about baseball, and I was thinking about it because in the article I write about, I talk about the greatest athlete of the first half of the 20th century was Jim Thorpe. He won Olympic gold medals, and he played professional football. He was in the college and pro Hall of Fame. He played pro baseball for 6 years. And the one thing that Thorpe really didn't do in pro baseball was it wasn't a great hitter. I think his best year was like 247.
Well, that's probably the hard, that and golf and hitting a baseball are probably the 2 most difficult things to do in professional sports, because even the best guys fail 7 out of 10 times.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
I mean, you stop and think, like back when Thorpe was playing, he was a 4-tool player. There was no such thing as a 5-tool player. You had guys could throw, run,
right,
field, and just hit, because it was a dead ball. There was no hit for power back then. Now, if Wilt played, he would have had to be a 5-tool player. He probably would have been field, run, throw. As far as hitting, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's why
that's hard to. I mean, when Thorpe played, and back in the early part of the 20th century, the strike zone was from the shoulders all the way down to the knees. When I was a kid in the 60s, the strike zone was from the armpit to the knees. And Christ, you watch a game now, you watch a game any night of the week, and the strike zone, it's like a stock market. It could change from one batter to the next. You never know what it is. It could be a belt buckle. I mean, it's ridiculous. But he you know, and then I was thinking about it today because we were doing the show tonight. I was thinking there's a great story that John Kruk tells, and he's standing outside a building or whatever. And he's having a cigarette, and a lady comes up to him. And he said, "You're John Kruk, aren't you?" She said, "Yes, I am. Yes, ma'am." And he said, "Well, you're a professional athlete. You shouldn't be smoking." He said, "No, ma'am. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm a baseball player."
Yeah.
You know, so it's a whole different breed of cat. John Kruk hit 300 exactly lifetime.
Well, it's, I mean,
Great hitter.
yeah. Well, you know, like you said, it's apples and oranges. I want to touch on this comment here. We got a comment from Ravon Hogs. What's up, guys? Question: how much would Wilt average in today's NBA? Take care and happy holidays. Well, first off, thanks for checking us out, and happy holidays to you and your family also. I don't know. That's a tough question. Like how much Wilt would average? I would say he'd average as much as he wanted to be quite honest with you. You know, I think he'd average 30.
Sure he would.
Easy, you know what I'm
Because
saying?
because you know nobody would play. No, you know nobody's playing down low anymore. Maybe the Joker's the only one, and he could take on. He used to go up against Nate Thurman and Willis Reed and Russell. I mean,
Yeah.
he would have manhandled, and Kareem. He would have Bob Lanier. He would have manhandled the Joker. Manhandled him.
Can
And the
you
Joker's
imagine-
a great player.
Oh, he is, but he can't play
But
a
he
lick.
could.
He can't play a lick of defense.
He can't play. No, and Wilt would just shoot
As good as-
these guys up.
Well, you know, you look at that Golden State team. As good as Draymond Green is, and Kevin Looney, I really like that kid, Kevin Looney. He's a nice, solid NBA center, but Wilt would kill them guys.
Oh, Wilt would be, like I said, all the characteristics that I mentioned: size, speed, strength, jumping ability, just everything. I mean, the durability. He would totally dominate this game.
Yeah, and I mean, in my opinion, the closest guy that I've seen to Wilt is Embiid. I mean, I'm not, and he's not even close to Wilt. But I'm saying as far as skills go, because Embiid, you know, you look at the numbers. Like Embiid's putting up numbers that are like he averages like a point a minute. Embiid. I mean, Embiid's a hell of a player.
Oh,
but
granted, he's a great player.
Embiid's a great player. But the difference between Embiid and Wilt, though, is the durability.
Okay, and that's
Because Embiid, I mean, that's you know, Embiid, for as great as he is, and he is great. You know, you said Wilt never failed out of a game. He played 48 minutes a game, played every single night. Now Embiid plays a lot more than he used to play, but that's where Wilt is separated. You know, and got one more question here. I agree with Ravon Hogs. He says one more question: would Bob Cousy survive in this era? I say yes. I think so because he can handle the ball and stuff, right?
Yeah, he was fast enough.
Yeah, I mean he can.
And he was a good distributor, sure. Another thing too was with Embiid. Embiid's a good free throw shooter and a 3-point shooter.
Yeah,
now
Wilt couldn't do that.
Well, he could. You know, it's like anything else. I mean, if he didn't shoot free throws because he felt he didn't have to. That was more of an attitude than anything with him. But
but you know what though? Not to be okay, so not to crap on Wilt because he's a great player, but maybe he should have. I mean, like look at all those close games. I mean, they lost to the Celtics by 1 point in Game 7, 2 points. I mean, if he makes a couple more free throws in some of them series, maybe he has 4 or 5 titles.
Sure.
You know?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, it was one of the biggest deficiencies of his game was the free throw shooting. But you know, a lot of great players have some deficiency. I mean, Embiid is a very good 3-point shooter and a very good free throw shooter. But I mean,
but he commits, right, exactly. It's hard to nitpick, but he commits some big turnovers late in games.
Big turnovers.
Yeah.
And I think that he would really have his hands full with Wilt as far as from a physical matchup standpoint. I think Wilt could probably get him fouled out of a game.
Yeah.
The guy I was thinking about that maybe would give Wilt the toughest time, I was thinking about it, would be Olajuwon.
Yeah, well, Olajuwon had great foot. Olajuwon's footwork was like second to none.
Oh, Olajuwon was. I mean, he was an
And he was a
amazing
great
player.
athlete too.
He was a great,
Elijah Line.
he was a great athlete, and I'm not saying Wilt couldn't handle him, but I mean he would give Wilt a game, but Wilt would beat him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I
I
mean,
really, I firmly believe that. Again, here's a guy that if you put him in any other sport, with the exception of baseball, he'd be a champion.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, and yeah, who knows? Maybe slap some skates on him. Maybe he could have played hockey too. You know what I mean? Who the hell knows? When you're a great athlete like that, you can do a lot of things.
Imagine him, like I said, imagine him in the NFL, what he could have done.
Let me get one more comment here. Michael Thomas, he says, I saw Wilt when he was a Sixer. There will never be another center like him. A youthful Wilt would dominate in today's game. He played Jabbar when he was older and still held his own. Yep, we agree with you, Michael. And happy Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and thanks for checking in.
Yeah, thanks for checking in.
Totally agree.
Total agreement, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I hear these people calling up Glenn McDowell on a Saturday, or asking on Saturday morning, or one of the sports shows, whatever, on the radio, and missing Elliott when he used to be on, and people couldn't play with these guys today.
The hell out!
Kidding.
Yeah, what the hell out of here?
You
just named it. The guy was like 48 years old, and he was lifting even more than Shaq did in his prime.
Oh yeah. I mean, unbelievable.
You know what it is? People get married to their era, and my like I grew up in the 80s. Like I started watching basketball in '86, so of course I'm partial to Showtime. I'm a Sixers fan, obviously, but I mean I'm partial to the teams I watch were like Showtime Lakers, like Charles Barkley, for the Sixers, Charles Barkley. Like those Celtics teams, and then of course the Bulls teams, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
So like my era watching basketball was like late 80s and 90s. And, so sometimes it's hard for me where I go, oh man, I loved basketball back then, in the 90s and stuff. And it kind of jades you a little bit to some of the other eras, but
yeah, but what happens is you become a prisoner of your own history where you have like your own blinders on.
Yeah.
And you have to look at history more objectively and look at it peripherally, and look at it in its context and on the times, and look at it and be able to think to see if something like this, if he could play today. And I mean, it's just no question.
He could, and he was a good enough athlete where even in today in the small ball era, and you talked about how they changed the rules for Wilt, and it's ironic because it's always, and when I say this guy's name, I'm not saying that this guy that I'm about to say is on the level of Wilt Chamberlain or Michael Jordan. But when you talked about changing the rules or changing the game, I would say like in today's modern day basketball, like how they changed the rules for Wilt.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody other than Wilt has changed the game of basketball now more than Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Because in a totally different way. I mean, you look at the way the NBA is played now because of Steph Curry with the 3-point line and the analytics of the 3-point shot. The NBA is a total like the NBA that I grew up with, or that you grew up with, I grew up with, where it was centers, low post game. It's a totally different game now.
Oh yeah.
But that said, I still think Wilt would dominate. But I mean, that's a guy that's changed the game too. And I guess what I'm saying is that each era, because every year something changes, and something, and different eras come, and different rules and different ways of winning games and stuff like that.
And they do it to the level of the playing field is to, and especially if somebody is that much more dominant than everybody else. And that's what they did for him. I mean, as time went on, I can remember like in the 80s where, I mean, like because I played basketball in the late 60s, early all through the 70s, and back then, I mean, always refs in games always watch for a walk or a carryover, and
they don't even look for it anymore.
They don't look for that anymore. I mean, Patrick Ewing, my God, he would get the ball in the post, and he would move off that one pivot foot, and then the next thing you know, he'd be he'd be 4 feet over there.
Mikhail used to walk his balls off
And
too.
Jordan was he walked all the time, and he would carry the ball over, and they let that stuff slide because these guys were the marquee guys, and they couldn't call it. You couldn't call walking on Michael Jordan. Oh my God!
Yeah.
You know?
So Sean Kilrainier says, great show, great show, guys. Looking forward to the next Old School podcast. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you checking in, and we're going to get ready to wrap up here too.
Yeah, we're going to be doing we're going to be coming back in 2 weeks, and we're going to put together a show on Philly sports GMs from 1960 on, good ones and then the bad ones. We're going to have put a list together of each, and my nephew and I are going to write an article about it, and you guys can jump in and voice your opinions, just like you did with our last show on the
douchebags.
And I mean, we like audience participation as much as we can, and we realize with Wilt, it's very difficult because most of you people that are watching just never had the opportunity to see him play.
Yeah,
so, but I strongly urge you, if you get the opportunity, go onto some of the YouTube videos and just look at, interviews of players like talking about Wilt when he played and what he was like. And I mean, he's really an amazing character. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, just just what he talked about, what he did in the bedroom with the 20,000 women too. That's interesting enough. You know what I mean?
I read that when he moved to California, he bought a house. It was over 8,000 square feet, and his bed was a king size. It was something like 90 inches or something.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, so he could really move around.
Yeah, you could do some serious action up in there.
That's what I mean. He was, and he had the mirror he had the mirror ceilings, and I mean, he was he was the consummate entertainer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we're getting out of here in a minute, but you talk in his retirement, TV commercials, investments. He did a movie with Arnold, and one real interesting tidbit too. This guy was such a great athlete. He was actually offered to return to the NBA by the Cleveland Cavaliers at the age of 45, and the New Jersey Nets at the age of 50.
Yeah.
So that's how dominant Wilt was. I hope you guys enjoyed this walk. But before we get out of here, yes. Before we get out of here, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors here. First off, anybody out there looking to go to an event, we got a great local business here, www.sherrystickets.com, family owned and operated since 1946. You can save 10% off, promo code EOP10. So, show a local business some love, especially in this holiday season, because times are tough out there. And, why not support a local business instead of some of the big box places? Anybody out there having some law problems, hit our man David R. Cherry, Esquire up. He's got deals with workers' compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, and criminal law. You could call him at 610-565-0300 or www.cherryinjury.com. Here's a great bar. A lot of our EOP guys check this place out again down Delaware County. It's Dolan's December to Remember. 24 East Sellers Avenue, Ridley Park, PA 19078. They got $8 cheesesteaks, wings, cheesesteaks, memorabilia. This event on the 16th already passed, but I'm sure they have other events coming up. Here's Philly Sports Road Trips. They do a great job. It's already too late for this one in particular. They did Dallas tomorrow, but they do some Sixers trips. They got a trip to Brooklyn for Sixers Brooklyn, and they're going to be doing some Phillies trips. I think they're doing a Phillies Yankees, which I'm actually interested in checking out because I think that'd be a good time. And also down at the the next two home games, they do Birds tailgates down at the Navy Yard. So go down there, check that out. Edge of Philly Sports and the Painted Lines do Eagles shows. There's 3 different shows. You got the pregame show, the halftime show, and the postgame show. It's on www.eopsports.com or the Painted Lines. So they did a great job. I had the privilege of being on there a couple times, and it's always a good time. And of course, here's the lineup on Edge of Philly Sports. Tomorrow, of course, we got I already mentioned my buddy Pat, PM in the AM at 9 o'clock. And of course, the Eagles play Dallas. So make sure you check out the pregame and the postgame show and all that stuff. And there's something for everybody. And Flyers fans, I don't see it on here, but make sure you check out the Clear the Ice with my man Matty B. I know the Flyers are struggling, so if you want to call up and rip a couple of these guys, check in with our buddy. He does a great job. So anyway, Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this walk down memory lane, and I hope you enjoyed learning about, and in my uncle's opinion, the greatest athlete in the second half of the 20th century. And shoot, I mean, we're already 22 years into this century, and he's probably would even stand up even now. So
sure would. Yeah.
So anyway, we'll be back in a few weeks to talk about general managers and looking for everybody's opinion out there. Who's good, who sucks. Obviously we'll be touching on guys like Billy King, and it will make it interesting. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.